Yeah.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing just fanny-tanny.
Good.
Fanny-tanny.
Well, this is a nice surprise. You popping in?
Just popping in. I'll make sure everybody's getting to the meditations.
Yeah, they are doing pretty good. I've got to send you over the list.
I usually acknowledge and let them know that they're coming. That to come on there and let's get it going because it's not going to stop.
A couple of people have come in tonight and asked about it. Well, and a couple that came in last night, and I, when they make a statement, I send them over. So I'm hoping they're joining.
We've got some flyers that one of the members have volunteered to do to start sending them out over the wires and everywhere.
Good.
So if we have to, we'll go through neighborhoods and canvass neighborhoods.
Well, whatever it takes, because
put them on telephone poles.
People need to get on board, right?
That's right. Bumper stickers, you name it.
Holograms.
That's right.
Smarty charged up those flyers that she made that I sent over to you.
Super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Super powerful.
Yes, indeed.
So there's been lots of code release during the meditation and up until now, and some of the stuff is like Indiana Jones stuff happening right now. It's like, are you serious?
It is off the charts. You're right. Yeah.
Yep.
You're right about that.
It's getting crazier and crazier, and I'm looking and we're looking and we're like, really?
You can't believe anything that's being stated on the surface. You might as well just throw it out because it's all bunk. It's just goop and garbage being thrown out there to see if any of it's going to still stick to anybody and cause people to become, flustered or irritated, which obviously they like doing, but it's not taking hold anymore. It just isn't. They think that they can.
The final few is being weeded out, So it is what it is. The last little few.
People aren't going to recognize things coming shortly here. I mean, everything that they see and interact with is just going to melt away. False governments, these talking heads on the national news, and all this just goop is just going to go out the window.
Oh, my goodness. It's going to be a beautiful day whenever the good guys finally take over the media.
Yeah, it's
we're working on it.
It's a constant transition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's going to be transitioning well after the Republic, and well after the centers, well after many things. It's going to be a constant transition for people to become more and more acclimated and adjusted to law of the land, common law, jural assemblies, on and on and on. And
a young lady just asked the question about, she felt like she needed to not do her project because of all the technology that's coming. And I told her, it's not going to happen overnight, so continue on with her plan because things are being done in stages.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that because that, prayerfully she's listening and,
Well, a lot of people, too, don't realize that a lot of the new technologies are going to take a while to get out there. I mean, there's a lot to be done on infrastructure, application execution, to get a lot of the new technologies going and rolling. And in the meantime, there's got to have to be other projects that can fill the void and take up the slack. Like a lot of people have asked me about what about combustible engines? Are we just going to dump those and transition out of them, transition out of electric vehicles? And
well, we won't have to if we can just slap a hologram on there and just use up the water that's plentiful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's lots of things people are working on all around the world.
If you want to take it to the extreme, people could travel just by blinking their minds.
Well, so that's what I do on a daily basis.
That's what I'm working on doing.
Yeah, me too. I'm trying to do that physically. I do it on the. I mean, I was just with Archangel Michael in Saint Germain, and if you think I'm bullshitting, better think again.
I know.
So I mean, we're working on getting this stuff done, like right now.
I mean, getting physically moving oneself, 10,000 miles cannot be done right now by a human being, by themselves, just standing there and then concentrating and moving their bodies 10,000 miles in a matter of seconds. You can do it etherically.
Stephen did it.
Yeah, you can do it etherically, but to do it physically is just not. There aren't any, but there's no one at that level yet that can actually.
Yeah, Stephen did it.
What we're doing is we're going to make it easier. We're going to the way we're going to achieve that is by raising the planet's vibration so that we can do it more effectively, easier, and people don't have to bust their brains just do it.
You got to watch the barrier, and the barrier is that the reason that we, if we get to a point where we're interdimensional travelers, then we won't want to be physical anymore. And we've got a long way to go before we become interdimensional, benevolent interdimensional. And so we have to draw the line somewhere on balance, because the reason we enter physical bodies is to do things in physicality and not be totally morphed into a interdimensional being where we don't need physical form anymore. So we need physical form because we enjoy it. I'll put it that way. So if we did, you enjoy it. We get hooked on it quite heavily here in our in our social structure on the planet. We like being physical because think about it. You got all these different tastes and smells and touch and feel and expression but in the etherics you don't have any of that. You don't feel that way. You don't touch things, you don't smell things, you don't have any of that stuff. And so a lot of us miss it, and we want to go back. I talk with spirits all the time that want to come back. Now that I'm here, I want to go back, they say. I want to go back. I hear that all the time. I want to go back. I swam with the dolphins. I did this. I've done all these things I wanted to do when I was in. And I'm at the point where I just want to be physical again. So I think that's one of the biggest draws for all of us is that, the reincarnating into another body, do I want to do that? Or, but look at all the things I can do in a physical form, so I think I'm going to go back there and do that. And everything we touch and smell and eat and, emotion and physical is a learning process, obviously, as everybody knows. But then we take that on, and the God learns from what we do. So we're constantly touching and feeling and experiencing all the time. So our attraction to the physical is heavy duty. That's why, that's why we're going to have anti-gravitic scooters and transports and to get us from point A to point B quick. But then there's some people that like traveling. They enjoy traveling. So they won't use the anti-gravitics that much because it won't interest them. It's so exciting because there's so many variances of people that have certain desires in certain areas, and they start grasping and looking. And, I like a little tiny place to live in, or I want a big place, or I don't want a place at all. I just want to sleep out in the nature, under a cactus or a tree. And, it's like some people, when you have the replicators, when we get those replicators and we get enough of them out, so it starts making a difference, some people just say, well, I don't need to do any of this agriculture stuff or gardening because I can just use my replicator. But then some people say, well, I want to raise a micro-organic garden, and I want to get my hands in the soil and that type of thing. And so, it's going to be it's just not going to be a complete shift over to the new technologies. I think a lot of people are going to say, well, that's nice, Yeah, I have one. I don't use it that much, and those types of things. I don't think you're going to see a real huge mad rush to transition. Sure, it's always the ones that want everything first that'll be in line to get the newest technology first and quickly and says, oh yeah, I've got a replicator, so we can have any kind of food on the planet we want, or fix anything we want in a matter of seconds, and that's it. And bragging rights or just ego or whatever. And the energy devices, like the energy cube, for instance, that's going to take a while because of the transition of pulling down all the wires, taking down all the poles, all the transformers. That takes a long time. Take all of that infrastructure out and then install these cubes everywhere. Put them in each unit, each house. I mean, you could go into the...
What's the cube for, Jared?
Cube is a power-free energy. It's about the size of a little portable dehumidifier that you could buy at Sears or something. And you plug it into the main, to your circuit board, and flip the switch, and it'll run, but it has no moving parts. And it'll run for years and years and years and years. It doesn't emit any heat, and there's no moving parts and no heat. It's not like a magnet. It's not that technology, and it has continual power for eternity. There's no outages, nothing.
Where's the power coming from?
It pulls it out of the atmosphere.
How far out of the atmosphere? There's got to be something generating this power.
If you look 24/7, everywhere we walk and everywhere we are, there's energy.
Right.
And energy is being reinstituted and re-energized every 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So this is like a magnet of that energy, and it pulls it in. It'll pull it in wherever it's at. So you go 10,000 feet up in the air, it doesn't matter. It creates a vortex. It's got a continual funnel of energy that it's drawing, that it converts that energy into an alternating current into the household. Mm-hmm. And eventually we'll be able to do it all wireless. There won't be any. It'll be a communication through Lightwave communication. And you'll hear that. That'll start coming out, called Lightwave communication. And that's data being transported, because Wi-Fi is not good for us. We will get rid of it. But Lightwave basically is trillions of bits upon trillions of bits of data being transported along waves of light at faster than light speed. So, in other words, like today, as we're getting really buffooned on internet service in this country, you can have upload speeds of so many megabyte, so many gigabyte. With Lightwave technology, the upload speed is unlimited. There's no limit. You could have 100,000 gigabytes per second. It's so quick. And everything will be in real time. You'll be able to do procedures over the internet through Lightwave technology. And people get that confused with the fiber optics. But the fiber optics is archaic compared to Lightwave technology.
Now, where are these light waves coming from? Are they generated on this planet, or are they coming from out of space?
The configuring unit, which you can wear, and then there's like a small disc that you can have in your home, actually configures the elements of light in the actual thin air and creates this technology, emits a beam of light. And if you understand how fast light travels and how fast that data can be sent, so the sending unit sends it to a receiving unit, and they both talk to each other. Mm-hmm. It's like a radio wave, except it's a light wave. It's the best way to describe it. If you understand how radio waves work, then pretty much have the same application, except it's light waves being transmitted through these devices, which, communication on the planet becomes instantaneous. That's where I was talking about, where you have the combination of the transceiver, where you can talk and communicate back and forth all over the planet on a universal translator, where you can understand everybody and everybody's language and totally destroy the barrier of, the language barrier, so that people can talk with each other on an ongoing basis all over the planet. And we aren't talking about microwave. Microwave is going to go away. Microwave is going to drop off with these new technologies that will be coming out. Communication technologies that blow microwave all over, just off the charts. And cell phones, these smartphones are going to become archaic because they're so big, they're so cumbersome. You have to use your finger and touch things all the time. And you can already see what they're trying to do is voice wave communication, which is basically just software, and you're talking to the software, and the software oscillates your voice and your communications and starts learning as a real simplified artificial intelligence. And, that's where they're going with Alexa and all these others, where everything will be voice command. You won't have a computer. You basically talk to the computer and tell it what you want. And they're adjusting people now. They're getting them warmed up with these voice commands that they have. I mean, everybody's got them. Apple's got them. Everybody has them. Where you just talk and people start getting used to that. And it used to be in sci-fi films, and people thought, well, back in the 60s, that never happened. But it's here today. And eventually, you'll open your door by saying, door open. All of this stuff is going to become so simplified just by voice command. Everything will be voice command, and it'll measure your voice and identify your voice for security purposes. And you'll have a code or something that will be infused into the system. And of course, they've got facial scans and retinal scans and all of that stuff, which is basically to watch everybody because of the paranoia.
Yeah. They got that now.
Yeah, the secrecy thing is going to go away because there won't be a need for people to watch people anymore. When a planet becomes benevolent and war and conflict drop away, you don't have a need for a lot of things. You have a need for a protective barrier, in the upper atmosphere, so that we don't have, bad guys come and try and take pot shots at us or blow us up. Yeah, we have some kind of protection there. But when it comes to the surface population, once we have transferred or transitioned to a benevolent society, a lot of these things that we have we won't need anymore. We won't need armies with, brimming with all kinds of bombs and special weapons and microwave weapons and lasers and all that stuff. We won't need them. We won't need them on the surface of the planet. We'll have a space fleet that will patrol around and keep things safe out in outer space, and that's pretty much it. And if you really want to go to advance, if you really want to get to the point of humanity advancing to a certain level, that's the level where we no longer carry physical form, and we're just light beings, period. So we've merged with our etheric selves, which is a light energy, plasma energy, and then we become light beings. We take on any form instantaneously on a continual basis and then vaporize and just, blip away. It's just like on Star Trek when The Next Generation, where they had the Q character.
I like Q.
That's how advanced humanity is going to end up being, where you just blink in and out. It won't even be roads, everything. You'll just think things into being. Period.
I'm glad you said that. So let's get back to my question. So Philip, he translated 30 miles. He took his physical body with him like Q does. So why can we can't do that?
Do what?
Translate ourselves from one area to the next. Transport.
Physically, eventually, humanity will be able to do that physically.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritually, etherically, we can do that now.
Right.
But most of us do it. Most of us do it when we're sleeping.
Yeah.
And you can only stay out of the body so long before you become totally bushed, severely tired, fatigued.
I know, and you feel it the next day sometimes.
Oh, yeah, you feel it. Yeah, that's true. You can't. Some of us have a tendency to overstay our outside body. We have a cord that keeps us grounded to the physical because we're not finished with our assignment. So, but to do it in physical form, where you can teleport the physical form anywhere while you're in the physical form, and use it as like a mini starship, where you can bleep in and out, travel different dimensions, and there are beings that can travel in the different dimensions. They can go from the fourth dimension to the fifth to the sixth to the seventh to the eighth to the ninth to the 10th to the 11th with ease, just with basically a wisp, and without any physical discomfort. We can travel 5 dimensions, which is unusual, which we will end up doing once we become cognizant and understand who we are and what our true abilities are. But the transition is to benevolence, and that's what this is the beginning phases of human race becoming benevolent, of dropping the fear of being bombed and shot at and knifed and all of the things that come with the horrors of being harmed. That's going to slowly dissipate, and eventually it'll be gone. There will be no need for violence or fighting or hitting or stabbing or shooting or bombing and all of that stuff that the dark agenda created for humanity is going to be gone. It's be wiped out. Standing armies will be a thing of the past. And if people would look at the true history of this country, we never kept a standing army in the beginning. After the Revolutionary War, they all went home. We didn't have an army after the Revolutionary War. They all disbanded.
That's right. Whenever they finish fighting, they will go home.
They'd go home and tend their families and their farms and their homesteads, and we didn't keep a standing army.
Yeah, go back again if they needed to fight again. They can go back.
Yeah. They would call to arms to protect our borders and our country, and all the able-bodied men would jump to it. That's how they did it. But then we had the corrupt ones come in and take, basically steal our country out from underneath us, and that's who's been running things into the ground ever since.
Speaking of which, now my question is again, these energy squares. Where is this energy coming from? Is it coming from off the planet, from the planet, or out of space?
It's coming from everything. All of it. All of it.
So how do we trust this that is not coming from Saturn? That's what I want to get to.
No, there's no dark array energy being absorbed and utilized.
How do we know for sure?
Well, if you did have dark array energy, then your benevolence would be gone and you'd be very combative and destructive.
See, the reason why I'm asking is this. Okay. Now, if you take a look at the energy that all these towers all of a sudden just appeared all over the place. You drive 5 miles, or you used to could see them. Now they're like every mile in these really high cell towers, and they emit these frequencies in the middle of the night when people are sleeping to cause all kind of problems in their bodies and their household. So that's why I'm asking. Now these towers are going to be gone, right? These grid, power grids, they're going to be taken down.
Yep.
And then now we got these cubes that's hanging around in the air. So where is this energy coming from? You know, because they were based on the information that is given to the public, which is none. These things aren't supposed to be harmful, but they are. So that's why I'm asking that question.
If you're in our solar system, a lot of the energy comes from the plasma energy from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
The cubes draw most of their energy from the sun, but it's not solar. It's not solar.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could call it like a magnet that identifies harmless energy, and it pulls it in. It restructures it to work in the house or vehicle or whatever your purposes are, whatever you're going to use it for.
Mm-hmm.
You can't use it for destructive purposes.
Mm-hmm.
It will detect destructive intentions, and it will totally make itself inert and shut down.
Okay, so it feeds off. Do they feed off of each other as far as connecting the energy?
You could. They're a separate, evolving system, so you don't piggyback them or hook them up to several.
Mm-hmm.
One adjusts to the capacity. In other words, if you have one and you want to run a whole neighborhood, you only need one. If you want to run a house, you only need one. Same thing, different displacement. It automatically, with its smart thinking, will identify the use of the power on what is drawing on it, and then provide that power. So
now you're using the word smart thinking, so now we're talking about an AI square.
Yeah, but we're talking about a simplified, controlled AI.
Controlled by whom?
Not to the level, controlled by the user.
Oh, okay. That's what I'm trying to get to. Okay.
So, you don't, as we know, AI can be very dangerous when the human race gets to the point where they get so lethargic and lazy that they rely everything on automation.
That's what they're being programmed to do right now with these cell phones. Everywhere you go, everybody got their face down in one.
And once, it's just like money. You'd rather touch it and feel it and hold it, and you have control over it to a certain extent. With this artificial intelligence and Yal DeBoa, which was strangling the planet, and it's like a virus that attacks different galaxies and universes, and it basically destroys. It lulls the biological life form into false security, and then at the point when the biological life form believes that everything's taken care of and everything's automated, don't have to do anything, it then turns on the biological life form and destroys it and eradicates it. If it had its way, it would destroy all biological life through all the universes, through all the meta-universes, period, where there would not be any biological life left. It would all be stamped out. So it's a virus against biological life forms.
Right.
Or any life forms for that matter. That's not, I guess you call it mechanical in a way, because artificial intelligence just is what it means. It's artificial. It's not God created.
Right.
It starts off by mankind creating it, and it's an entity of energy that influences civilizations to be seduced by it, by using it more and more. And by being seduced, I mean that they lose their ability to think for themselves and to operate for themselves. They lose their ability. So then they become totally dependent on the AI. The AI knows this. And once that happens, then the AI turns on the biological entity and destroys it and eradicates it.
That's right.
And anybody that talks about artificial intelligence as a wonderful thing, when you got to be careful, because those are the agents of the dark, because they want people to become complacent and just, well, that'll do it for you, or this will do it for you, and you don't have to do anything. Part of our existence is doing things physically. If we didn't have to do anything, why are we in physical bodies?
Right.
Why do we have legs and why do we have arms? We wouldn't have those things if we weren't supposed to walk around or lift things or hug or do anything like that. So people have to realize the fact that AI is only good at its pretty much its simplistic form, where, okay, so you got a little box and you talk to it and it looks up things on the internet and that type of thing, or you want to talk to the computer and the computer will do this and do that, but controlled, where humanity is in control and not the AI. And that's what you have to draw the line with. And the AI would like it to be where right now everybody's controlled by the AI.
So how do we stop? How do we stop these people that are more and more creating more and more AIs to take over the different positions of the biological life forms or human beings that are wanting the AIs or the robots or the clones or whatever to come in, so because they just don't want to do it and they want to turn it over to these things. How do we stop that from progressing?
Well, that becomes an education for the population to understand that the crucial element that has been missing from mankind is reconnecting to nature. Humanity has pretty much left nature. That's why the planet is in such disarray and bad shape. If you respect all life, the golden rule is you don't harm yourself, you don't harm others, and you don't harm the environment or the ecosystem, and pretty much good to go. You know, talking to trees and just sitting on your front yard, even if you have a little patch of grass, or you're in an apartment, you just sit out on the patio, or you go to the park, or connect with nature, connect with the natural sequence of existence and not the artificial intelligence. So you look at kids today, and the majority of them are socked up in apartments and townhomes and houses and playing games, video games, and they can become very addictive, where you have young ones sitting there playing for like all day long and never go outside. So they have vitamin D deficiencies. They have
Jared, please let me interrupt you right there. I am totally against that. However, based on the it's like the less one or the other. Either they're being programmed by these games and stuff, or they're out being smothered by the chemtrail.
And that's why I'm talking about getting connected back to nature makes you start to understand and respect nature, and you want nature to flourish and be healthy. So there starts to waken up the inner spirit within all of us that says, hey, we're going to start doing something a lot different here. We're going to start protecting life rather than letting it be destroyed. And so the chemtrails stop, the polluting stops, the genetically modifying every organism that they can get their hands on stops, and then we start aiding the planet on healing. The mother is going to heal, but we, as an association with planet Earth, we can help her heal and respect her, which we have not done in eons. So when, people are disconnected, they don't have an understanding of much of anything. When they're disconnected from the planet and they're disconnected from nature, then they don't understand how it operates. Most children don't even know where a tomato comes from. They think it comes from the grocery store.
That's
they think, where's a tomato? Where does this come from? And they say grocery store. That's where it comes from. And so when each generation, and I think everybody knows this, each generation of young ones, you have a situation where it's repeated. The process keeps repeating itself. And so the parents teach the children the same things, pretty much similar things that their parents taught them, and that their parents and their parents and their parents. So you have repetitiveness, okay? And you have a system that doesn't work. The system in this country or on this planet fails miserably. It does not work. It isn't in harmony. It's forced, and it's jagged, and it's very sharp, and it cuts and lacerates because you have a monetary system that is totally dysfunctional. I mean, it's never worked at all. And it's totally been designed for a handful of criminals to have all the wealth and power and control. That's bottom line. And all the systems on the planet are atrocious. They don't work in harmony. If you look at anything, they don't work in harmony. Look at the combustible engine gasoline car. Look at jets. Look at all the pollution. Look at all the natural resources it takes to keep those running. It's against nature. Everything we have that we use for the most part in everyday living is against nature. So it's no wonder that we're destroying the very thing that sustains us. That's self-annihilation. And that's what's been happening on this planet for a very long time. Yeah. Dumping raw sewage into the oceans, not putting money into the infrastructure because you've got criminals that run everything and control everything, so they steal all the wealth from the people who produce the wealth. The criminals don't produce the wealth. It's the people who produce the wealth. Yeah, so the masses are the ones that have produced. They're the ones that have produced all the wealth on the planet. Mm-hmm. Do you honestly think a king and a queen produces wealth?
Absolutely not. We've seen too many movies where they suck the people dry.
Well, it's common sense. You're going to get a royal court. The royal court's going to go out and do what? They're going to go out and do nothing. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the people are the wealth, and that's how it's been set up forever. But the people are complacent and are ignorant to the fact of how they're being manipulated and used. Mm-hmm. So the dark agenda controls all that and manipulates it all on a continual basis. So it constantly keeps the masses in a sense of fear and confusion. Mm-hmm. Because they don't know what to believe and they don't know what to do. So they're like rats in a maze. They're controlled, like Rorschach's dogs, Pavlov's dogs, in the Rorschach ink blot tests. You get to a level and then that's it. That's it. Literally confuse the heck out of students and people that go to universities and colleges because they've been teaching the same thing, basically, across the board, from undergrad to PhD, forever. It's never changed. Mm-hmm. It's never evolved. It's the same thing.
Yeah, everything changed except for the education and the paycheck.
That's it. And people don't get that. If we're a progressive civilization and we're progressively supposed to be advancing, they make it look like we're advancing, but we should be 100, 200 years ahead by now from where we're at right now. But yet they kept all that from the majority of the human race. So the human race becomes ignorant and fearful and confused. You keep it that way. You keep it whipped up that way. And then what do you do? Well, we really screwed up the economies and all this stuff, and so we got to have a war. So, okay, so let's start a war. They'll think it's for real, and it'll kill a lot of people, but it'll make us a lot of money. And so this constant making money and controlling the wealth and the power and manipulating the people is an insanity. So if you look at those who look at it from their standpoint, they believe it's that the dark agenda believes what they do is good. They believe it's actually a good thing to murder off the majority of the people on the planet so that they can easily manage the small amount of humans as slaves that service them and make things for them. And the fact of the matter is that we have to go the other way. Humanity has to become knowledgeable on many things, hence the learning centers, hence everything that's going to start coming out. I will guarantee people that within the next 5 years, they're not going to recognize anything on how things are done, how things are operating, the technologies that'll be flying out the door, new things happening every day, lickety-split, spur of the moment changes, just continual without fail. Things will be dying by the wayside. People will be letting go. Some people will hold on. Some people don't like change, like I said. But the funny thing is that we're changing every split second. Our bodies are changing every split second. The planet's changing. And so we live in constant change, but we don't like change. Think about that for a minute. We live in constant change, but we don't like change. And I'm not saying everybody doesn't like change. I'm saying the majority don't like that change. They like that comfort zone. They get in that comfort zone. They're happy in that comfort zone. They don't like to go outside that comfort zone, and they don't like to feel uncomfortable. Usually when you feel uncomfortable is when you should pursue certain things, as long as, again, they don't harm others and they don't harm the environment. So there's so, you look at the money thing. The money thing's temporary. The money thing's it'll be here. It'll be wealth will be equally distributed. There will be those like the people on this call that are stewards of the wealth. They'll take the wealth. They'll distribute it. They'll help. They'll have projects. They'll fall through their projects. They'll be working. There'll be people employed all over the place. There won't be unemployment. There won't be eventually. There won't be. Everybody will be doing something, and not killing themselves either. Like today, where you got young couples that are working 2.5, 3 jobs and are not even barely getting by. That it's just horrible. And they don't have any time to spend as a family unit because of the fact that they're so all the time working. Because the small group trying to feed the family, trying to keep a roof over their heads. I mean, it goes on. And then you have the guilt factor that most humans feel guilty. They don't feel deserving. They've been trained that way. I don't deserve this, and the other shoe's going to fall, and this isn't going to last forever, and, doom and gloom, that feeling of doom and gloom comes over people, and they go, what's going to happen? And if they only would take a split second to think just for a few seconds that 99% of the things that they worry about never happen. They never happen. And things always work out if people are in a optimistic, positive direction. But if they stay in a pessimistic, negative type of position and mentally, then they're going to always attract that same type of turmoil where, it's the unknown. They don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to make it? Is this going to work? Is that going to work? It's just a continual process of negating things in life or embracing things in life. And as we embrace them, things work out. As we don't embrace them, we fight them, things don't work out. Things are always jagged, cause problems and stress, and we fight things, It's like, some people need to work on their physical well-being, and they know they're supposed to work on their physical well-being, but they don't. They're not in that habit, and they never have been, so they don't work on their physical well-being. And so then problems occur, and they don't know how to work on themselves, so they start having physical ailments and physical problems, and then the next thing you know, they're no longer in a physical body. And if you look at the condition of the human race in general, it's horrible, because Dr. W.C., like you've said, they're spraying the air. They're being bombarded with chemicals in the food, in the water, everywhere, and so their bodies become so toxified, and most of them don't know how to detoxify their bodies to keep up with all of the abuse that their bodies are being treated with. And so, again, it's the ignorance of people not wanting to, or just not learning how to learn about homeopathy, where they're going into herbs, they're going into extracts, they're learning about things. It's like, for instance, cancer should be a joke on the planet. Someone says, "I've got cancer," it's gone. It's eliminated. There are so many cures for cancer, it's unreal. We've cured several people of 4-stage cancers. And I get emails all the time. People say, "I've got this friend in stage 4 cancer, pancreatic cancer." There are cures for this that don't harm your body. Chemotherapy and radiation should be outlawed within the next 2 seconds across the planet. They shouldn't even be.
If you want to be honest about it, doctors should be outlawed.
Well, yeah, the allopathic industry is that just that. It's like the oil industry. The body is the oil well, and it produces money by the pharmaceuticals. And you aren't going to see the pharmaceuticals around, I would say, in the next 5 to half a dozen years. Pharmaceutical companies are going to be totally repurposed. You're not going
maybe they'll be selling marijuana or CBD oil or something like that.
Now, if they don't conform, go to naturopathic. Naturopathic is going to be Ayurvedic, naturopathic, homeopathy, herbology, crystal energy, use of stones and different semi-precious gems, and how to use these energies and how to combine them to be healthy on a continual basis. And the allopathic will become, unless you break a bone and you can't get up because you're in pain, you'll need help in that situation. But
for the most, a med bed to take care of that.
Yeah, but if you're not near a med bed and you fall and you have a compound fracture, you're not going to be able to get up. So you need help. You need to have someone that can help you. Like, you can voice command a call for a kind of an ambulance to come out, or a help group to come out and put you in the med bed or something like that, because there'll be certain things, where people that are single won't have the ability to become mobile if they hurt themselves or they knock their head, they slip and fall, that type of thing. And there'll be sensors in their homes that will automatically detect that. And, it might get to the point where there'll be devices in the house that will protect the person from getting harmed or being harmed or slipping and falling or whatever. But, the naturopathic edge and the homeopathic is going to become the thing of the future, where most people will have a knowledge base of most of those things. It'll just be like, pull this out of the cupboard. You'll have an allopathic area in the house where you'll go and say, well, I'll take this and I'll take that. I feel like I need a little bit more energy, so I'll take this herb and this extract and so on and so forth, or this amino acid or that amino acid. And people becoming knowledgeable is what they've never wanted anybody to become. Knowledgeable people are super dangerous because you can't pull the wool over their eyes majority of the time. So the dark agenda doesn't want knowledgeable Americans. They want dumb Americans. They want ignorant Americans that don't know what's going on so that they can get away with murder. They could dance in front of all the American people and say, look what we've been doing. We've been committing treason. We've been raping and pillaging and robbing you blind. We've been pumping you full of chemicals and drugs, and we've been just running to the bank that we own, operate, and control, laughing our rear ends off.
But thank God for waking us up, right?
Yeah, I mean it's really a powerful wake-up call for the human race. Mm-hmm. And we can't be complacent anymore. We have to be awake and aware to things that are going on around us. You know, it's like, and never stop asking questions. And it's like, you know, when you have a situation where you're not sure, and you just keep asking intelligent questions until you get satisfied with things. A lot of people don't ask enough questions about anything, and the overlords have gotten so many people conditioned that they just, you know, no big deal. They'll forget about it. You know, it won't bother them. We can keep committing crimes and treason against them, and we could do it right out in broad daylight now, and they won't do anything about it. But that's changing. Yep. It's, you know, it's changing. It definitely is changing. We got such a phenomenal future ahead. But people go, yeah, but how can you say that when you look at all the stuff that's going on and all the confusion and the stress and the embarrassment of this corporation in D.C. and what they've been doing and everything? It's all a facade. It's all a game. It's all a game.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you to talk about, or just at least answer this question if you can, which I'm sure you can. Now that the earth is going through all of these changes, right? And you just suggested that within 5 years the earth will be totally different from what we see it today, as far as all the old things passing away and the new things coming forward, more so to the point where we can recognize it. So my question to you is this. What happens to the cities beneath the earth, like Shambhala, Agartha, all of those places, Asgard, those places that are underneath not under, but in the inner earth? What happens to those places, those cities? You know, because from my understanding, you know, a lot of the white knights are, and the good military groups are taking care of the tunnels that the reptilians and draconians, well, the reptilians, because very few draconians live underneath the earth, but they're collapsing those tunnels. So what happens to the cities underneath the earth, beneath the earth? Shambhala, Agartha, Asgard, those cities. Those have been intact for millions of years. They are timeless. So they say they've got technologies and protective shieldings and different protective technologies that sustain them, and they continue and they go on. A lot of what will happen is that they'll come to the surface and interact with us. We'll be invited down there and interact with them. So the changes, most of the changes that's going to be taking place is only going to affect the outer earth where we live. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So get ready.
Get ready, because if you look at Earth is going through what it goes through every several thousand years. It's just that some of us remember because we've been through it in other lifetimes, but it's kind of foggy. But the fact of the matter is that and if they would just come out and tell the people and not worry about, there's really not a panic. It's just that you have to prepare for certain things to be ready. if you're going to go on a vacation, you prepare before you go on a vacation. You make plans and so on and so forth, where you're going to go. Most people do. But for the most part, with the Earth changes, because we're going to be going into an ice age. It's basically what's going to happen. The currents of the oceans are going to pretty much shut down for a bit. Things are going to freeze. We're going to have much more frigid, cold weather than that's why you got a lot of strange things happening on the planet and weather situations that aren't reported pretty much in mainstream media because they're just consumed about what's going on in Washington.
They're only consumed about blasting President Trump. That's all they're consumed with. Because the messages that the good guys are giving him to give to the people, they don't want that information to get out. So they think if they just blast him that he's going to shut up, but he has to give that information out because now is the time for that information to come forth.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what they say. He still got to give that information to us because that's his directive. So what about so when you look at the old maps and you see that the earth goes from one end to the other, but there's a great wall that's in the center of the earth that only covers from the northern, southern hemispheres and go all the way around, and it appears that the earth is round in that sense. So my question to you is this. Now, based on my research, if you go beyond, if you can make it beyond that wall into what they call the realm of God, where there is so much gold and jewels and things that people cannot even imagine. But very few are able to make it past that wall. So my question to you is this. Because it appears that that wall has surrounded the earth, which is, the part that they have contained, the containment area, where we live and don't dare, are not dared to roam or go past that wall. Okay. So my question to you is this. Outside of that sphere or the earth that we see that they continuously show us, will those boundaries ever be open for us to travel to the other ends, the outer ends of the earth? Because Enoch talks about this in the books of Enoch. But, it's not shared with the masses or those that don't research it. So this center that we are living in that looks like a round globe, will we ever physically be allowed to go past that wall that's keeping that sphere in our face?
As the dismantling of the soul-catching machines and equipment that are stationed throughout the solar system in this quadrant of the galaxy, the veil drops and disappears. Once the veil drops and disappears and everything blends in, then people will be able to come and go as they please anywhere and see anything and have anything exposed.
Wow, that's going to be so awesome. Oh, my goodness.
The truth factors are going to be blatant because there won't be any hiding and shadowy diversions and misdirections and misinformations and, people having to guess. Everything will be laid open. Everything will be exposed.
Oh, that's so exciting. What
happened, why were not only humans but other species, other intelligent civilizations, why were their souls caught in this part of the galaxy, and why were so many thrown and forced reincarnation here to Earth over and over and repeatedly? What reason was there to go through shocking the spirit through the tunnel? and then shocking them, going down through utero to reincarnate over and over and over again, and never having a memory of their past life. The reason they didn't have a memory of their past lives was because of the fact that it was controlled, conditioned out of them, so that each time they were thinking that it was the first time, not knowing that life is eternal, that our existence is forever.
Okay, so have you ever met any of the old guards that live or have ventured past that wall into our realm?
I've sat with many.
What? Okay. Just give me one. Give me one good story.
Well, it's interesting because, when you're, let's just put it this way, when you're meditating and you're traveling and you're able to travel through different barriers, basically effortlessly, and you think that you're in balance and your form and everything's kind of floating along, and then you look over to your left, and you could just be out in space. You look over to your left and you see these giant beings, colossal, sitting there meditating, and they've meditated for trillions and trillions of years. And they kind of nudge each other and look over to you and say, "Look at the new one here. Look at this one. What are they up to? What are they doing?" And the wealth of consumable knowledge is so vast, so intricate, because when you think about trillions of beings throughout the metaverses existing and carrying on forms of life second to second on such a large and diverse scale, and experiencing in those second to seconds not just that, but also dimensional. All of this happening all at once, all at the same time. So there are those of the old guard that look like people that think they have challenges in a human body here on Earth is a joke to some of them. It's not a big deal. There have been other worlds throughout the eons that have made Earth look like Shangri-La. And Earth and this part of the galaxy happens, sitting on the outer rim of the Milky Way galaxy, happens to be one of the, basically the bad planet that was supposed to be in Eden, but then, the kind of frog people came in and just started destroying it. That's like destroying it and destroying other planets. And evil main purpose is to destroy. Once people understand that. Evil is destruction. Good or love is creation. So that yin and yang balance that people try to achieve, feminine and masculine, the balance of all that there is. And there are literally galaxies that to you and I are so tiny, that are housed in small areas that would blow people's minds, that are just, but yet contain billions and billions of star systems. Nothing is what it appears to be.
Right.
It's one of the things that of the old creators would say, that nothing is how it appears. Nothing is. On this planet, how you conceive everything and perceive everything is nothing of what it really is. Nothing. And to be so incarcerated and so imprisoned without knowing about it, with accepting it. It's like, well, okay, so we'll be prisoners and we'll be your slaves, and give us a couple of crumbs here and there and we'll be happy, type thing. And it's really funny because people say, well, what are people going to do when they don't work? They do what they want to do. Mm-hmm. That's it. But it's just do what you want to do, as long as you don't harm the environment or you don't harm others. Do what you want to do. That's it. You just do what you want to do. You just enjoy your life. That's it. What else? What else do you desire to enjoy your life? If you ask anybody on this planet, you say, what do you really like to do? I want to be happy. I want to enjoy my life. Well, what would that be? Well, I'd vacation for a while, but after that, it'd get boring after a while with that. But I'd like to start a family, or I'd like to do this, and travel maybe, or build things, or help the elderly, or manufacture a new technology, whatever, and do it. These time travelers always talk about the fact that that there's certain times into the future, but these times are not. They're not counting on the present that you're in. There are so many different paradigm timelines out there. So someone says, well, I went to 2178, or I went to 3290, or I went to 6210, and it was this way. But there's no guarantee that that's the future that you would experience. Mm-hmm. And people don't understand that. They think that, and these time travelers never talk about that. They never talk about that. They just talk about the time they visited and and very sheepishly talk about a few things here and there so they don't upset the timeline. But they've upset the timeline so many times. Just by being, like someone who lives in 6120 and comes back to 2018, just by doing that, they've altered the timeline. Mm-hmm. Now, not a lot, but they've created a little ripple, because they're not supposed to be in that space at this particular time. Absolutely. So around them, they create a ripple effect in the timeline. And that's why time that's why time travel has to be so carefully supervised, because you aren't interested in interacting with yourself from years in the past, because you could create many different paradigms, many different versions of you growing up through lives.
But isn't there many different versions of you out there anyway in the different dimensions?
Oh, Lord, there's just literally thousands.
So then, how would that affect?
Well, it's been done where someone does a time travel and creates 40 parallel time paths, new paradigms.
Isn't that what the Matrix is all about? You can, if you look at the way it runs, if they can jump from one stream of frequency into one like 12 dimensions over.
Here's the point. This is one thing that you cannot control time. Mm-hmm. Cannot control it.
Right.
You cannot control existence. There's a lot of arrogance, and the overlords of this matrix, the only reason they're overlords is they have nothing else to do. If you really want to know the reason, that's the reason that they do all that they've done. They have nothing better to do. That's it. Nothing special, nothing far-fetched, but that's the truth. They have nothing here. And they do it because they can do it. They have created a matrix and imprisoned humanity forever. and they pump lies and deceit and all of the reading materials, all of the education, everything. Everything is almost pretty close to a lie that people conceive and believe as being real and truthful. It's a lie. There's thousands of species of extraterrestrials, of off-worlders. I mean, just through the solar system alone, there's over 1,000 traveling back and forth.
Okay, so are all of them operating in love?
All of them what?
Are they all operating in love?
Majority are. Some aren't.
Okay.
All right, I'll put it this way. If the yin and yang, the balance of good and bad, was out of whack, bad was the king, we wouldn't be here. Human race would be extinct and gone a long time ago.
Yeah, they're trying that so hard.
And there's so many species that have lent their genetics, as I've mentioned before, to the human race. We're a conglomeration of several different DNAs, genetics, that have come from different extraterrestrial civilizations. And that's why we're so unique, so different. But we don't know that because they've kept that. That's another thing that they've kept wiped from any memory of humanity. So this whole process of, the human being thinking guilty and feeling not deserving and undeserving, self-esteem for the majority of mankind is in the basement. It's in the toilet. Self-esteem is horrible. When you look on a general basis of the human race, it's horrible. The majority of humans don't feel that they deserve much at all. They don't feel
they've been programmed that way.
That's exactly right. Yes. So they can't aspire, and they believe that everything that you do, as they've been trained, as slaves, you have to work your fingers to a bone. See? You have to work your fingers to the bone in order to get anywhere. So you teach the slaves slave labor, and the only way they're going to get anywhere is to work their fingers to the bone. That's slave mentality, and then create scarcity on anything that is abundant. And now think about this. Create scarcity on anything that's abundant. So it's a reverse reflection. So basically what you have is you've got gold is abundant. Silver is abundant. Precious metals are all abundant. Gems are abundant. Wealth is abundant. It's unending. Let's put it this way. There are people who control wealth on this planet that don't know there are other people that control more wealth than that they control. And then there are other people that control wealth that they control that are more than the wealth of the previous ones and don't know anything about each other at all. It is so layered, it's unbelievable. There are several tiers of wealth that has accumulated here on this planet. Not to mention other planets, but here on this planet. And, what they're doing is they're trying to get the human race in line to step up and be more of a manager of things rather than a slave of things. To turn them more into management rather than slaves. That's a huge undertaking when you've conditioned a civilization from day one to be slaves. But they don't know they're slaves.
Right.
It's like Dr. W.C. when you talk about, the Matrix and, being a certain way. It's all slaves. It's the whole system has been set up on the precipice of slavery.
Absolutely.
So, and the funny thing is, and this is what's really interesting, this is a proven fact, is that the human race, when they started out on this planet, were black. They were not white, they were black.
Yeah.
And that's coming out all over the place.
Well,
now,
I mean, you can tell that by the rays of the sun.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it and
brown-skinned people don't burn in the sun.
Brown-skinned people don't, for the most part, don't because of the pigmentation. That's why.
That's right.
People
They're native to
where did the white person come from? Where did the light-colored skin? Well, eventually migrations to different parts of the planet, different weather patterns and everything. Through time, the body adjusted and evolved. You know, so, and that's a fact. That's historically being surfaced in different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. Cradle of humanity is Africa. Mm-hmm. It's where it was born. It's where humanity was born, in Africa. So it's kind of you can see how they've twisted everything. You see how life has been twisted, and how slavery has been the norm forever. And then once the human race starts and it is, and it's going to get even more so, activates its third eye and starts realizing that we've all been had. Mm-hmm. Everybody's been had. You know, no longer are there. There's going to be a handful of beings controlling the entire population of the human race. It's not going to work anymore. All right. Even though they say that they are going to, they're still going to get away and they're going to win forever. You cannot win forever. You don't win forever.
Well, their forever is over.
That's exactly right. But
so can we shift? Subject?
I second that.
I don't want you to get, to get redundant and repeating yourself. So can we shift subjects for a minute? I want to ask you to talk about Anubis and Thoth. 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 And Anubis. Can you do that?
Oh, you're talking about the Egyptian
bird head. Yes, the bird head.
The Egyptian
figure and the dog head figure from back then.
And Anubis was basically the god of death. Mm-hmm. God of evil and death and destruction.
Mm-hmm. Now, how does he relate to what they have placed in our programming as Satan?
Very similar. That was just Anubis.
A different time?
Yeah, just a different time. Anubis was an ET.
Right.
Who had high levels of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Was bent on death and destruction. Mm-hmm. Would seduce certain Egyptians into lending his power to them if they basically gave him their soul.
Oh. So that's how he was able to get, when people go, whenever they depart their bodies, that's how he was able to get them to go to the underworld.
Exactly.
What he called the underworld. Oh. Yeah. So that was that technology. Now, where did he come from? I know I'm asking questions too fast. Go ahead.
Well,
they would trade what?
They would trade their essence for fame and wealth and fortune and
like they do now.
Like they do now. There's not much difference. And you look at Anubis, he was depicted as very black, pitch black, mm-hmm. With a like a dog head, so to speak.
Right.
And a human body.
Now, pause.
Now,
was that a mask, or was that his face for real? Do you know?
That's real.
Oh, it is. Wow.
Yeah, Thoth was of the bird civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And very knowledgeable, very wise, very, very advanced. Mm-hmm. Now, there's so many different civilizations, intelligent civilizations. Like there's the lion civilization. They have a lion's face, feline.
Mm-hmm. The Facade.
There's the bird, which are the blue avions. They have black avions. They have white avions, and they're humanoid, but they have bird feathers and a beak and feathers on their head. And it's funny because all of these different vessels they're just vessels to operate in, with all these different spirits that inhabit these vessels. Like Thoth was an avian. In Egyptian days. At times the avian would help humanity in certain ways. Good, the bad, and the ugly. Influencing humanity has been a thing from the beginning.
Right.
Basically. I mean, it's influencing the human race. I mean, you have humans in the Egyptian times saw these flying saucers, that these beings would float down on a bed of golden, sparkly light. The teleporter. So immediately the humans thought that these were gods, so they would worship them. Now, unfortunately, the ETs didn't tell the humans the truth, because they kind of liked the idea that these beings were worshiping them. Build temples, and, give them food and all kinds of stuff, and the whole nine yards is, again, back into slavery. And so that has gone on. It's kept the humanity behind the times technology-wise and in slavery without even knowing about it. And if you look at all of the ET influences on this planet, Anubis, Thoth, all of them were ETs. They weren't some mystical creature. They were ETs. The Asgardians, different existence. The Olympians, Mount Olympus, Zeus, Athena, all of them were ETs. In fact, they were giants.
Right.
With high advanced technologies. And there was a Mount Olympus, and they did reside there. And the humans worshiped them. Again, the humans were slaves.
Right.
So if you go through the past and you look at all of the little bit that we've been given, because there's so much more, of these different deities, entities that actually were ETs that came to Earth, use their technologies to rule and control. And then when they would leave, they would appoint some of the human underlings where they had mixed blood with the humans and had them control and rule.
Yeah.
Just like the pharaohs. It was a constant, it's like the life hereafter in the Egyptians, where that's why they mummified all their people when they would pass and put them in sarcophaguses or coffins with all their belongings for the life after. And basically they didn't realize that a lot of the Egyptians, just like a lot of us, didn't realize that life goes on after you leave the body. Just like in the Egyptian times, souls got trapped. They were trapped on the planet. It created all kinds of things. Mummies coming alive. All the stories about all of the dark and the book of death and the book of life. Those existed. Those things existed. There's no myths. They were handed down and written. A lot of it was taken and hidden away from humanity, so humanity doesn't get the straight scoop or the whole picture. But, you go back to Mesopotamia. You go back to the Babylonians. You go back to the Sumerians. It's a constant. And then way before them, there were several other civilizations and advanced civilizations, several times more advanced than we are today on this planet. Several times more advanced. That there's no trace of, because their cities have been buried, and any remnants of them have been buried and hidden, so that, basically the human race has no clue. And it's crazy.
Okay. So, speaking of life going on, after you leave the body and you ascend and you move forward, speaking of that, we talk about, we've read about, I've read many articles concerning these different ascended masters and the different ages that they come from, and how they are, working. Some, the majority of them are working with the galactic councils and all of this stuff. My question is this: why can we never, ever, ever hear about any of the disciples that were, according to the scriptures, walking with Jesus? We never hear about any of them. Where are they?
Because they don't want you to know the truth.
Okay.
That's why you never hear much about it. I mean, you hear about Peter.
We hear about it in
Judas.
The scriptures, but we don't hear about them now in this dispensation of time. Like we say Sananda. Okay, they say, Sananda is Jesus, and he's on the ship, and he's coming, and he's, in and out of phase. And then we hear about Ashtar, and we hear about Maitreya, and, go on and on with 52 of the ascended masters. But we talk about Saint Germain continuously, but nobody ever talks about, after the disciples left, now all these ascended masters supposedly come back, and they can descend back into this dispensation of time, back and forth. Saint Germain did so many times. But Peter, where's Peter? Where's Paul? Where's John? Where's James? Nobody ever talks about Philip. None of these guys that ever coming back or going back and forth through dimensions. But we never heard in the church about any of the ascended masters. None of them. You see what I'm saying? So my question is, where are they? Why they never come back? Why don't they interface back and forth with humanity? But only the ascended masters do. But we never hear about what happened to the disciples, except for one got hung upside down, his head got cut off. This one got stabbed upside down. This one got this. We hear about their horrible deaths, but we never hear about their interaction or re-entering into the planet. That's my question.
There are spirits that sometimes one visit is all they want. And the free will and freedom choice granted by Creator allows them to pick and choose. So Peter, Paul, Michael, the disciples, if they choose they don't want to reincarnate again, they don't want to come back here, and they would rather stay in spirit form to influence and assist and help in that way, in the etherical end, then they do so. Some of them just don't care to have any interaction at all.
Because we never hear about them interacting at all. So that's my question.
Okay, I just gave you the answer.
They don't care to. So if they don't care to, how do we know that these 52 ascended masters that are supposedly interacting with humankind is real? How do we know that they, what makes that difference? Not that they don't, that's something they want to do. Okay. I just want to know why the ones that we've been reared up with in the scriptures don't show up. And just that they don't care to is not good enough for me. You know? I want to know, is this the truth or is it a lie? That's what I want to know. Really, based on not just what we're reading in the scriptures, but what we're reading outside of the scriptures. Okay, so based on the research, Jesus was Melchizedek. You know, he took on all these different forms throughout the scriptures, as all the way up into the form of Yeshua or Jesus, which we say in English. Now, my question is this. Okay, at some point, according to the research, Saint Germain continuously coming in and out of humanity, right? Maitreya. If you go through research, you'll see Jesus in that form of Maitreya. Okay, and it goes on and on and on. So, based on the one thing is timeline that they screwed up and really try to merge everything together and make us think all of this happened within the 2,000-year frame, which we know it didn't based on our research and articles and stuff that we've read and talked about on this call. So my question is this. Well, you might, I just go ahead and, never mind, because, okay, I'm hearing some different stuff going on right now, so I know where I got to get the answer from. Okay.
If you believe in something, if you personally believe in something with all your heart, is it a lie?
No, not until you find out something different.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying when you believe in something with all your heart, is it a lie?
No, not until I found out something different. Because, okay, I was raised one way, and I believed that one way. And then as I began to get older and ask question after question and couldn't get answers, and then the more I would pray and ask God questions that nobody could answer, then he would say, okay, look over here, or go read this, or go find this book. I mean, just straight out telling me what to go and get and read to get my answer. And then, of course, my heart, things that I believed in with all my heart, that began to change because now I see something different. So that's why I gave you that answer.
If you have ascended masters that are put on cards and different decks of cards, and they're put in books, and there's artist concepts of what they look like, and there's so much of a number of them, and people talk with them, interact with them, communicate with them, ask them for assistance. If you're a spirit, and you have left the physical form, Maitreya at one time was a physical form. He left the physical form. Buddha was a physical form. Everybody knows that story just about. He left the physical form. You get reincarnation. Most people know about reincarnation, where a spirit comes back several times, not remembering their past lives. We've all discussed that and know why that is.
Right.
This is what it boils down to. If you believe and you communicate with ascended masters, spiritual beings, existing in an etherical plane, then they exist. That they are real. They're not a lie. The temptation and the interjection in your thought process while in the human form tries to convince you that they are a lie, that they are made up.
Okay, mine don't. Well, go ahead.
But your belief mechanism...
The answer is being sent to you, Dr. WC. You should see it.
I know. That's why I paused, because stuff started flowing. Go ahead.
I mean, when you look at all the ascended masters, Have you talked with any of them? Have you sat down, broken bread with them?
No.
Then why do you believe them?
It's just a discerning in my spirit of truth after searching and researching and looking.
Something that you feel uncomfortable with is what you should explore. Get the answers for yourself on exploring why you feel uncomfortable with certain things.
I don't feel uncomfortable with it. What my question is, I know that, Moria, Serapis Bay, all of them. I researched all of them out. Hilarion, all of them. They're rays of light, all of that. But my question is, why not the disciples that we were trained, that walked with Jesus, Yeshua? Why not them? We wasn't taught anything about sin. Even in the church today, they don't talk about any of the ascended masters. I'm not uncomfortable with it because I've researched it, and I'm very comfortable because I seek God for answers. But my question is, the ones that we are taught about, where are they? I understand ascending and leaving this body and going into esoteric realm, moving forward into different universes or different planets in other universes, or even in some of the superverses. I understand all of that. However, and I know that some may have advanced to those levels and chose not to come back. But my question is, why not? Based on the fact that that's what's being bombarded into people to maintain their that control of Christianity over them. Not basically just for me, but I need other people to hear this stuff.
You just answered that. You just answered your own question. When we get involved with religion bleeds into religion, which is man-made. Mm-hmm. The Bible is religion. It was created by man. People wrote down events. It's just like someone writing stories down, storytellers. Mm-hmm. It's like, certain people traveled with certain people and wrote down stories about them and created a book so people could read about them. Mm-hmm. That's basically
I always say it's somebody's diary.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's like people's diaries, in different writings back then, however they wrote, because a lot of them didn't have ink pens and ink quills and, parchment paper to write on at the time. So you kind of wonder, well, it was just mentally, and they just later on did it and put it down on paper when they had writing implements and so on and so forth, because they weren't prevalent out in the woods and out in the bush and out in the desert. So, how did they get all this information written down, and how do we know that it's on the money, that it's 100% correct? How do we know that a lot of it wasn't made up and embellished? You don't know. There's a lot of stories and a lot of things that people swear by. They swear by it. Mm-hmm. That it's true, it's real. But they weren't there to experience it. They didn't know it.
Right.
How can you? It's like, did you sit with the apostles? Did you sit and have bread and wine with them? Were they your buddies? Did you go fishing with them? Did you catch fish in the nets and ride on the boats? Did you travel the countryside with them? Did they share with you their thoughts, feelings, and emotions as being a human being, and how they believed and what they thought about things? And Did you sit with them and talk to them about Jesus and what they thought about Jesus as a man? Did he have a temper? No. Did he get drunk? What were some of the things that he did do that aren't written down, that they don't want the human race to know about? What type of a man was he really? If he was a man, what were his weaknesses? What were some of his flaws? See, we can go into a whole barrel of monkeys with a lot of these things on why, like the disciples, why weren't the disciples talked about? Why aren't they included with the ascended masters? If you're a spirit, you can basically decide what you want to do, period, if you escape the matrix. Mm-hmm. Okay? Maitreya escaped the matrix. Mm-hmm. He was able to get out of it. Okay? Buddha did the same thing. Lao Tzu, the Way, the Tao, he did the same thing. He was able to escape. I've said it several times that everything that you believe is a lie. Mm-hmm. Everything that you think's the lie is the truth. And that becomes very, very gray area, smoky area, because that's how it's been designed to control the human race and to keep it from advancing too fast.
Correct.
So
now, you just used the word too fast.
Yeah.
Please explain.
If you take a person and you were let's just say you were able to take a hose and plug it to their brain, and at a huge velocity download so much information that it would overload the brain and fry it. Okay? Humanity as a whole cannot accept that type of a vortex of information coming in that quickly, that fast, of all the truths and everything all at once, smashing them in the face, relentlessly, unending.
That's why they have to wake up based on the path that they're on.
Each of us are on a path. We all end up on the same road, but we're all on different paths. We all eventually get to the same place. But the fact of the matter is, some can take a lot of velocity, others can't.
Even minds are coming in
depending on the deepness, the depthness of the programming.
Exactly. So when and you've got to be humanitarian about it and loving and compassionate to certain ones, because they can't handle it. They just can't handle it. So you have a dilemma.
We know that just by our basic conversation with some people.
Yeah, because of their conditioning. Their conditioning is so embedded that the shock effect is so massive. And that's why they're trying to temper this energy wave, because it would be so devastating to certain people. It would just be absolutely debilitate them.
I have to tell you, I really appreciate you answering these questions.
Dr. W.C.
Yes.
I have an answer if you'd like to hear it.
Go ahead.
The answer was that they had work to do. They're back, and they're with you.
I received that. I heard something similar to that whenever that's why I paused. That's why I paused. Because I said, I just hold on. I got to get my answer somewhere else, because now I got to meditate on what I heard. Okay, so, Jared, I appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions, because this is so good. Or at least it is to me. I like to be into stuff like this. So I have another question for you, and I have two. Number one, if you would, I did not give the callers a chance to come in at all. I just kind of grabbed you all to myself, and I apologize to the callers, and I hope they have been edified by my question. And number two, since we do have open mic, would you be willing to do that tomorrow night if you are available.
Oh, Q&A tomorrow night? Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. So then I can finish. I can take you on out then. Okay, and then I'll give you to them tomorrow and try to be quiet. Try. Fisher told me when I say try, I'm implying that I am planning to fail at being quiet.
Hey,
okay.
just by you guys talking, we got a lot of things done, and we also changed timelines again. Just so you know.
Good.
Very good.
And those traps that you were talking about, they've been taken care of.
Obliterated.
Yes, sir.
Obliterated.
Okay, Jared, how accurate is the book of Urantia?
The what?
The book of Urantia. The Urantia books.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear what the name.
You are. How accurate is that?
The book of Urantia is a version of not human life, but version of another life existence.
Okay. Now, there is a planet far, far away in, I think it's like the 5th or 6th super universe called Satana in that book. And it says that's where the Satans, they'll call them Satan, that people, the people in that, on that planet, instead of the Satanas, they call them the Satans. Okay. Now, my question is this. There is a part in that book that talks about Eve having an affair with one of them. And then they twisted it around in the Christian Bible to say that it was a serpent, and which also in a certain dispensation of time, that serpent was a reptile. Well, is a reptile, but was like a reptilian. That's why it had legs, and God cursed it. So my question to you is this. Which version of that is true? Do you know? Or was the one that they put in the Christian Bible just to bring forth understanding? Well, it really don't give you understanding if you don't do any research, but to kind of give people a glimpse. Or is the one in the book of Urantia what really happened? Or did you read it?
Are you addressing Adama and Eva?
Yes.
Okay. So they couldn't tell the real truth. You know, they made up a fairy tale story.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that you have Adam, Adama.
Mm-hmm.
Adam was man. Adam was basically genetically created. There wasn't a female in the beginning. There was just a bunch of Adamas.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually they took genetic makeup from Adama and created, along with genetic makeup from an Anunnaki woman, and created Eva, so that Eva and Adama could have offspring.
Right.
And what happened in the Garden of Eden, the true story of the Garden of Eden, is that there was Enki and Enlil. And those were two brothers. The two brothers were royal court of their father, and his name escapes me right now.
Yeah.
But one of the brothers was a military strategist, very aggressive, very stern, very strict. The other brother was a scientist, where he encouraged things. So he had Adama and Eva stay on their property, which was the garden. There was a garden, and the name of their property was Eden. Eden. And Adama and Eva hung around there in the garden. And the one scientific brother, and I always got their names mixed up anyway, but the one scientific brother encouraged them and started teaching them how to farm and agriculture, and because they had no skills at all whatsoever. And so he was teaching them, and eventually the other brother found out that they were staying in the Garden of Eden and permanently kicked them out and banished them from their garden. So it was twisted, and it was realigned and rewritten and reformulated to come out the way it was in a man-made created religion, to have that story. So you take Adama, man, Eva, woman, you've got just the man, so you've got to get genetic makeup from a female somewhere. So you genetically modify the DNA from Adama. You take DNA structure from the Anunnaki female, you mix that, you come up with Eva. Eva and Adama started having babies, and then you have humanity on planet Earth. That's pretty much a very simple structure and design. Now, they've tried to discredit that story over and over and over again. They want everybody to believe in the Anunnaki or the reptilian that were involved with. That's why you have the story of the serpent and the tree, and eat the apple, and sin was created, and again, let's make humanity feel bad. Let's make them feel bad that they sin. You created sin, and that's a whole other story about sin. And does sin really exist?
Isn't that an individual, a female?
If you research the word sin, you will find out it has nothing to do with doing things bad.
Right.
They gave doing bad things a word, sin. And the factor with Adama and Eva was basically as a genetically modified human race that started procreating children, and eventually started having female babies, because at first there was just a bunch of Adamas running around, and then when they did the genetic modification and everything, they were able to start, just the two of them start having babies. We all obviously originate from Adama and Eva, all of us on this planet. We're just the offspring of one couple, basically, and with a mixture of many different ET DNAs, which there was a professor, and her name escapes me. She was a French scientist, researcher, geneticist, and a handful of years ago, I think it was maybe 10 years ago or more, she did an evaluation on the human DNA, and she found several strands of extraterrestrial DNA in the human DNA. And, people think we have 12. We've got 25 strands of DNA. And most of it isn't a lot. Let's put it this way, it's dormant. So anything that's dormant, they call junk DNA.
Right.
It's dormant. Well, it's just junk DNA. It's just that they just don't understand it.
Exactly.
And so anything they don't understand, they trash, and they say, it's just useless, and so on and so forth. But anyway, she found this out. She was going to announce this to the world, and they killed her.
Of course. Okay?
The secrecy stuff has to end so that the human race finally finds out its origins and its roots. So it knows where it came from. Right now, the human race really doesn't know where it came from. Where's our origins? So, and all of these structures that have been created here in this matrix to, create a facade of existence of a story that isn't true. It's not true.
So are we at the generation now? But the generation, not the millennials, but the ones that's coming up now, underneath this, that's really a total different group. Are we at that generation? I read inside of a book once. There was a passage that said that the millennials were sent so that without any fear and pretty much without any sense of fear, but an entitlement to the throne of God, so that and they display that entitlement in their behavior in life, but they are in it. They were sent so that when God needed an army, they would raise up without any fear and march forward. So my question is this: what about this group that just came that's underneath them 10 years deep or 20 years deep? Because most of them, were born from 80 to, maybe 84, I guess, and below. What about this other group that's coming in now?
They're the ones. They're the turn the corner group.
Because you can see so much potential in them at such young ages.
Yeah, a lot of them are old souls.
Mm-hmm.
Timing has been to enter now, and for the new beginning of planet Earth.
I'm sitting in the bank or walking through a store or in a doctor's office or whatever, and I look. These people got these little babies. They're like 6 months. And they messing with cell phones. I mean, pushing buttons. And I'm like, oh, my God. Do the babies still take a bottle? I mean, and it's just like they're just in it.
Yeah, they're immersed. They're very advanced. Majority of them are very advanced. And they have lived in civilizations with tremendously advanced technology.
Mm-hmm.
They're here to assist with the shift in the event. And as they grow older, obviously they become much more aware, much more impotent, or potent, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll become great leaders, guides, protectors. All of them have served in those capacities,
mm-hmm.
some of them for billions, if not trillions of years.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see it in them.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. None whatsoever. Yeah. And that doesn't make any of us any different. It's just that we came to lay groundwork for certain things, and they're going to pick up from there. That's it.
Right. Absolutely.
They're going to finish up. They're going to finish up the airports and the architecture and everything, so that the generation after them that comes in is the main show.
Mm-hmm.
So, you think they're advanced? Wait till you see the next group.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all planned, as you well know. It's all been engineered and constructed.
Absolutely.
And there's no way that any of this can be taken place haphazardly or randomly. This is all, and then there's that little voice that comes in for most of us that says, oh, well, this isn't right, and, this isn't real, and, it's like the little devil on one shoulder and the little angel on the other shoulder. and got that negative ego voice constantly talking to you, saying, "Oh no, that's not real. Don't pay attention to that. That's not real." You have the other voice saying, "Yes,
when you got to research.
Yeah.
When you hear something, okay, let me go see what that means. Since first of all, that voice has no business talking to you, so you got to put it in check. But if by chance you do hear it, then you go and you take it as the opposite.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really pestering little voice that comes in there sometimes and just bugs the living daylights out of you.
Well, when I was younger and I would hear that voice, I would say, if you want to, don't talk to me